Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Mosaic session today. If you can see me, hear me, and also Saurabh, just drop a thumbs up, drop an emoji so that we know that you are able to hear and we are able to know that you are also present in the sessions. Yes, I can see thumbs up. Yeah. Maybe
Hello.
response on the chat as well. I have a new co-host today with Saurabh. Yeah, in the last session, I was the new co-host. Today, I have a new co-host with me. Saurabh here joined with me today
Yes,
to host Ravi from Scalekit. Um, hello, Bala. Hello, Samay. Hello, Sonali, Manek, all of you folks.
see a
Yeah,
lot of familiar faces. Good
yeah,
to see you guys.
yeah. Cool. I think we'll quickly cover up what we have had so far in the mosaic. Maybe Saurav, if you can move to the next one.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. So, Mosaic, as you would all know, Mosaic is powered by, partnered by, sponsored by all the logos that you see here, right from Code Rabbit to 11 Labs to Lovable to Maxim to Rocket to Scalekit and Windsurf. Many of you have already availed coupons, redemptions, pro plans for the tools like Windsurf, 11 Labs, and Rocket. In case you have still not availed it, highly recommend that you join Devfolio. Coming to the speakers, but I think we have covered almost 4 sessions so far. So we had a first session with Arvind, then the next session with Rahul, then the next session uh, with Madhu from Gemini, and the previous session that we had was from G from OpenAI. People learned so many things last session. People were also talking about the session is becoming a little bit too technical, but that's with most of the things AI, right? Engineers are trying to become PMs are trying to become engineers. So as product builders, we all need to learn few things in technical learning side as well. Today's session we have is from Ravi. It will be a really hands-on session on MCP servers and how to build agents that work on the MCP servers as well. But before that, certain common house rules that you all should know in case you are joining for the first time and you have still not done it. Join Devfolio. Primary reason to join Devfolio is that you will be able to form a team together, see the entire tracks, see entire prize pool that we have for all the tracks available here. So joining Devfolio is recommended. We'll have the link to joining Devfolio right away in the pinned section here. But you have still not joined, then highly recommended that you do it. One more thing that joining the Devfolio will provide is that you will also be able to avail all the redemptions for Windsurf, 11 Labs, Rocket, all the tools available, right? So, I'll probably take a pause for 10 seconds in case any of you are facing challenge in, let's say, joining Devfolio, or in case you have joined the Devfolio. Then after that, if you're facing the challenge in getting redemption of the tools, redemption of the codes, plans, and all of that. Yeah. Sonali, it's pinned in the chat. I think you can see the pinned section. Yeah. Kushal, same for you as well. It is pinned. Yeah, I think some Sanyam has also provided the link. Same link. We all can join. Cool. Next up, maybe I think we'll move to the part of tracks. Maybe Saurav, if you'd like to cover from here.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for that, Abhay. As most of you already know, we are already almost 1 week in, and people have already gotten their hands dirty. Some have already gotten the ideas that they are working on, and some are yet to build. I think most of the people would already know this, but I'll just get everyone up to speed. Whoever is new, whoever is joining us today, we have primarily 4 tracks on which you can choose, pick your ideas, and build. It can be voice AI or conversational products. It can be vibe coding. It can be building AI agents and workflows to automate your everyday day-to-day challenges, or it can be under AI evals and observability, right? So these are the 4 tracks. Your project can be made across the four all the four tracks as well, but you have to choose one track. And yeah, I would again repeat, please sign up on DevFolio and choose your tracks so that you can submit your projects in under one of these tracks. This is the way for you to win cash, credits, or gadgets, right? We do have a lot of prizes on the table. Thanks to all our partners for helping us do this. Every track has a prize. Every track winners will get gadgets. Every track prize winners will get credits, and we also have three overall winners for the hackathon. So they will get a mix of cash, credits, and prizes, right? So yeah, this is just a quick intro into all the four tracks that we already have. You might already be receiving emails, and if you are not a part of our Slack channel, please be on our Slack. You can find your team members there. You can brainstorm your ideas. And finally, please definitely submit at the end of the hackathon, right? That the entire purpose of this is to get your hands dirty, play around with all these AI tools, and get building. I'll quickly take a pause here. I would love to know what problem statements are you folks working on. If you can just give us a glimpse of things that you're working on, I would love to go through them. Maybe we can pick some of the folks who have already built something and showcase, give them a small shout out in our next session. We would definitely love to do that.
Yeah,
And
in the last session, it was exciting where I saw people mentioning that they were building AI companion. Someone mentioned they are building voice AI agent, English accent
accent
training.
training app. I think that's a very good idea, Param. I would love to see this working. Thalish is asking for the Slack link. Thalish, please see the pinned comment by Nandini. You can get all the links to our Slack, to our Notion. Our Notion is like the central hub where you get to know all the pre-reads, all the session details, how to redeem the coupon codes. Everything is in the Notion. So your Notion is one-stop place for you to go ahead and get all the session related information. Um, Yash is saying he wants to train an AI model, AI SAF Copilot for retail. That's a very interesting idea, Laura. Building a carbon emission compliance application for ensuring sustainability. Wow. I think I wouldn't have thought such diverse sets of ideas coming in. I think that's the beauty of getting all the folks in one place and giving them access to the best people out there
Yeah.
and get them
I also
started.
liked what Abdul has mentioned, the schedule system for medical reps for pharma companies. So many good AI things happening. I know a couple of companies building from US, Confido, and bunch of others who are building for hospitals, building for pharma companies and reps. Bunch of good things. AI vaccination reading for pets. That's Anna exciting. Also, probably I don't understand what that fully means, but sounds exciting.
I see a pocket food scientist to verify the product labels and their claims. I think that would be a brilliant idea, Rohit. Would love
Yeah,
to see that take shape.
all the retail FMCG companies would probably hate you if you launch this, but yeah,
For sure, for sure. AI vaccination for pets. I'm making WhatsApp automation system. Very interesting, Thalish. I have also been personally trying to build some WhatsApp automations. Would love for you to
yeah.
connect
So
and
Saurabh is WhatsApp automation hacker. He would know every WhatsApp launches, every feature launches that WhatsApp does for WhatsApp or WhatsApp business, even before they launch it. So he is part of that circles. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. But yes, if you would want to chat about building WhatsApp bots, I am happy to, just share some resources. Happy to come on a call, help you figure things out. If you have any ideas on WhatsApp site, definitely hit me up, and I would be very happy to help you.
Yeah. Yes, I think we have YouTube lives that was available. Now I think many of them have been unlisted, but you can check that. AI
And
dad
then,
to support kids with single mother.
wow.
Don't know what to comment here. Vertical and ambient agentic AI for manufacturing. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think manufacturing is a very interesting sector, at least in the Indian and Southeast Asian landscape, that can be disrupted with agentic solutions. So, Nikhil, kudos on that. I think that's a solid idea. Would love to see
Yeah.
um, it take
So
shape.
many companies or so many product builders are trying to work on the entire uh, what do you call workflow automations for manufacturing B2B. It's a huge problem. They work on old age ERP systems, SAP systems, all of that. Mayank, you can find it in the pinned section. The chat is already pinned for that. Yeah. I'm not seeing more of a voice answers here, like voice AI answers. Like folks are not building in voice. Like, is it difficult to build? Um, is there a challenge? Because I personally have tried 11 Labs platform, even their agentic platform that they are currently providing, which is good to use at least for MVP building purpose. Even their APIs are also pretty solid. So, not no one is building on voice AI sites here.
I think, Avar, on that note, I recently saw, I think it was Mansi or Manisha, if I'm not wrong, but
Yeah.
she made a anthem for the product folks, and
Wow.
it was really, really nice. I really loved it.
Yeah, I think at least with audio and maybe soon with video also, that we have reached the point that we will not be able to distinguish with Google launching, I think, banana very recently. Yeah.
Correct. Atul is saying 11 Labs consumes too much credits. Atul, I'm not sure if you already gotten the Creator Pro for next 3 months. 11 Labs has been really generous with us, and they are giving us a Creator tier. If you haven't received that, please make sure you are subscribed on DevFolio. Make sure you have registered on DevFolio, and you should have gotten the credits your way. I think that will solve your credits problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
turning voice notes, rough thoughts into blogs. That is also very interesting. Um,
I think I mean, some of you might be using Whisper as a platform, voice dictation, voice to text platform, which is really good. Mega is asking if you can share details on 11 Labs agentic platform. So Mega, I mean, it is already there on 11 Labs website. It is not a separate platform at all. So they provide you the platform to plug in your numbers, any numbers that you may have. If you want to just plug it in, have it, use it as a customer support, outbound, inbound, any of the calling. And then they also have a bunch of features within that voice agent as well. So that's something you can check out. Really, really powerful. Of course, there are other tools out there as well, but in case you just want to natively build within 11, is Rocket free till 1 million tokens? Akshay is asking Saurabh if you want to take that.
I think Rocket is free till 1 million tokens, but Rocket has been really generous. They are giving us 90% off on their pro tier. They have given us a coupon code. I will share it in a minute if you haven't received that already. But Rocket has given us a 90% off coupon code, and that gives you a lot of credits. And that is valid for next 3 months, folks. So I have already seen a bunch of interesting projects which people have already started building on Rocket. Um, I think I will quickly move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, this is the coupon code for Rockets. If you hadn't checked this out, we had already shared this after our last session, but this is it. It's TPF 90 off. Use this code and you will get 90% off on any of the Rockets Pro tier plans. Cool. I'll just stop here for 1 second. Moving on. Quick housekeeping rules. Folks, please make sure you've joined our Slack channel. Slack channel is where people are building teams, they are finding their teammates, they are making friends, and most importantly, they are coming together, discussing ideas, and actually showing other folks what they're shipping. So Slack is the channel where you can be up to speed on top with all the folks in the community who are building together. Make sure you have registered on DevFolio. Make sure you go through the pre-reads. Pre-reads are on the Notion. The Notion link is already pinned. Make sure you go through the pre-reads. That just makes you a little bit more prepped for the session. And finally, watch for invites and links. Make sure that you join these sessions live. We are getting some of the best people up here to invest their time and help you learn, right? So make sure you do all of these four things. Without any further ado, I'm super thrilled to welcome Ravi today. And Ravi is a co-founder of Scalekit. Scalekit, it's an authentication stack, purpose built for AI applications. Ravi has been a seasoned founder, a seasoned entrepreneur who has previously built PipeMonk, which was acquired by Freshworks, and created authentication systems at Freshworks there that handles more than 2 million daily users. So hats off, Ravi, for building that. He's here to unpack beyond the basics, building with MCPs, and I would want to get Ravi on the stage. Ravi, I am getting you on here. We would love to know. Hi, Ravi. Welcome back. And we would love to know a quick intro about you. A lot of folks here, people are especially curious about MCPs. I am personally a big fan of MCPs, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me here. So I'm Ravi Madabhushi. I'm co-founder and CPO at Scalekit. We are building authentication stack for AI applications. Again, in the talk, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why do we need to build agents? What are agents? What do you need to do to take the agents to production, and not just really say this is running on my laptop, right? That's what I'm going to focus a little bit more on.
Awesome. I'll just stop sharing my screen, Ravi, and I'll let you take it up from here.
Sure, sounds good. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. Yeah. So nice to speak to all of you. I hope you guys are building some amazing, cool things, and I hope you're vibing it really awesome and building something useful, not just necessarily you want to show to your girlfriend, right? Or boyfriend. So one of the things that I've seen happen in a lot of hackathons is, yeah, you wipe code a really cool application, but the moment that you want to actually share it with someone, that's when everything kind of breaks, right? Hey, it kind of works with my scenarios. It only works with my prompts. It only works with my context or my authentication and all that, right? So one of the things that we actually see happening is the kind of democratization that is happening on who can build real world applications is spreading a lot. So previously it used to be limited to only very few developers who has to learn a programming language so they can speak to the computers. But now with LLMs, everyone is able to prompt their way to building an application and then make sure that whatever they want to do is actually happening with the help of models and with the help of execution environments, etc., etc. But one of the things that is critical in the context of taking these vibe-coded agents or applications to real world is also about security. So some of the things that you would have seen, hey, I vibe-coded an application, but things started breaking production because someone hacked their way into it, etc., etc. So at Scalekit, we want to make sure that we want to keep the opportunity of creating real world applications as simple as possible, but at the same time, make sure that if we actually enable you to do it with real security that works in real world, and not just necessarily in the context of just you as a user, but also anyone who wants to agent that you build. So we are Scalekit. We are building the auth platform that we wish we had like 10 years back, right? So prior to Scalekit, me and my co-founder Satya, we started another startup called PipeMonk. We were building data integration platform as a service, which got acquired by Freshworks. And when we joined Freshworks in 2016, one of the biggest problems that we were asked to solve is, hey, can you build an authentication platform that scales to hundreds of thousands of customers that we're onboarding every day? Make sure that it meets their enterprise authentication standards, security standards, so that we can onboard more and more large customers. So at that point, we were hoping that instead of building everything in house, we can use a solution that is available in the market and use it for Freshworks needs. But after doing a market survey for 6 months, we realized that, hey, there is not a lot of great solutions out there for B2B applications. So we ended up building it ourselves. Of course, it took us a little bit around 4 years over a period of multiple iterations. We made a bunch of mistakes. We learned a lot. And we eventually built a really highly scalable and reliable authentication platform for 70,000 plus customers with 2 million daily active users, with all sorts of enterprise authentication capabilities. Right. So that's when we realized, hey, why should every company or every developer who is building an awesome product has to go through the same painful journey? Authentication is important, but no one is building or waking up trying to build an application thinking, how do I build an auth layer for my application, right? So you are thinking about, hey, what is my business idea? What is my product idea? How do I acquire new customers? You're not necessarily thinking about how do I add login with Google to my product, right? So that's where we started Scalekit. We launched our authentication for what we now call as authentication for human users in 2024. And our customers quickly pulled us into, hey, it's not just about humans that are accessing our product, it's also bots, agents, machines that are trying to access the product. We need a security and authentication angle there. So in 2025, we have launched auth for MCP servers, auth for A agents, and it's been great. So today I want to talk about, as you are building your agents and as you're building your applications, what are things that we wish we had learned 6 months back, so that you can focus on those as you're building your agents and make sure that you're building great applications and agents that actually have real agency and that are not just doing cool things, but also secure for you and for all your customers. So let me ask you a quick question. In case you have access to the chat, please feel free to respond. It will help me understand how to orchestrate the rest of my conversation. So how many of you are aware of what is an MCP, or what is an agent, or how do LLMs work? Okay, I see some messages coming in. Yeah, this is
So
great.
Ravi, I mean, for the context, the majority of the audience are product builders, like not tech first audiences. So they would probably know it in a layman terms, but I was mostly going to come to that part, that if you can explain, let's say maybe auth or MCP. I think agents most people understand, but
Yeah.
auth and MCP, if you can lay it down, maybe in the simplest terms possible, right?
Yeah.
That would be great. And why the importance of it also, right?
Yeah, totally.
Most of the
This
people are responding with like, very basic, not much, only high level, beginner level.
Yeah, this is great context. Thank you so much, Abhay. This is great context. It's helped me steer and navigate the conversation appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that I have the context, let me take a real step back and then talk about how the agents themselves have evolved over a period of time, right? So before we even talk about agents, let's talk about models. Technically, what do models do? In an extremely layman language, they take the context of what is being fed to them as input and then predict what is the next possible probability based on all the data that they have been fed with during the training and reinforcement phase, right? So for lack of a better example, you should treat LLMs as a glorified text in, text out machines or programs, right? There's, of course, there's a lot of magic happening behind the scenes, but it's technically is just that. You give them a text, and then they'll tell you what is the next possible thing, right? So, but why did they become extremely popular since late 2020s or 2021, right? So basically, OpenAI came up with this ChatGPT and then showed us how the real world use cases of an AI-based question and answer can help almost everyone, right? They gave a bunch of training data, almost like the entire web, right? And then said, hey, this is the training data that you have. Based on this training data, answer any questions anyone asks you, right? Of course, the initial models were not great. They constantly kept on optimizing. But majority of the agentic applications in the early 2021, 22, it's all about question and answer. I uh, I ask something, and then based on the training that it already has, that has been trained by whatever training set that the company gave it, it would answer, right? But if you want to give your own training data, there is no way it was possible, right? For example, you can't ask for any questions in your company context, right? You can't ask for anything that needs real world internet use cases, right? So that's when the whole RAG came in, which is again the whole point of RAG is how do you give it additional context beyond what it has been trained with. So a whole new class of applications started mushrooming, right? Okay, it's not just about the models that they're trained with, but I also can give it additional context. So people started building Q&A for their own websites, right? They built something like, hey, they train the data with their documentation, with their GitHub repositories, with their website, and then said any visitor that comes to my website can ask a question, and I can learn. The model can learn based on the context that it was fed with, and based on the user query, it can go answer. Right? This is great, but the next evolution is actually what is called as computer use or a browser use, right? Now, they built agents that can launch a Chrome browser and take actions like a real human would, right? It kind of unleashed a lot of things that were once thought impossible, right? Now they're training the LLM. Again, we all spoke about LLMs as text in, text out, but how can they start accessing computer and start using it like a real human, right? So again, it is still a text in, text out, but it's just that they were able to create multi-model agents that can take image, parse through the content of the image, and then understand and then add to the context. They were able to give it audio. Again, it's able to parse through the content and understand and answer questions related to it. So technically, browser use is nothing but taking screenshots of whatever is there on the screen, using that image as a context and answering question. So that means they should be able to do anything that you should be able to do. So what is beyond that, right? So one of the things that you may want to think about is you want to treat agents like not what human would do, but you want to give them a little bit more agency so that they can think and they can decide what to do. Instead of saying, open my Gmail or Google Calendar, go to this particular page and create a button and click on the save button. You don't want to do that. You really want to build agents that has the power to decide what to do by themselves. That is what defines agents. So to be able to do that, what is happening next, right? The whole point in the next era of this agentic applications is you give the business context to these agents, and these agents have the power and ability to be able to decide what to do, where to go, and how to take certain actions. For example, you may want to build a QA agent that you just give them, hey, this is my product, you go and test my product and report any bugs that you may see. Um, it has its own agency to determine what is a correct functionality, what is a buggy functionality, and then it reports bug, but it's not about reporting bug. Hey, create a bug in my Jira as a ticket. Now it needs access to Jira. So it can decide how to create a bug, what should be the description of the bug, what should be the screenshot that it should take. So basically, the whole point is, how do you build agents that have real power to take real actions in the real world? So that is what we see as the next era of building agentic applications or AI tools. In fact, we're already seeing this in a lot of different applications. If you have ever used Cloud Desktop as a tool is nothing but a glorified agent that already has a lot of applications baked into it. Now your Claude applications can talk to Asana, Atlassian, Google Mail, Google Calendar, etc., etc. Right? So the next era is about really building agents that have the agency to take real world actions as a companion to human users with real world applications, right? I know I did not really speak about MCP so far, but that is actually what is powering the whole evolution of this agentic era. So I'll talk about what is driving this change of just a Q&A agents to real world agents that are dealing with real world applications. And on one hand, we're talking about agents that can talk and take actions in third-party applications. So what are these applications supposed to do to make their product agent ready? Today, almost all the apps are built for human users. Humans will log into my product, they will click this button, do this thing, but then they also need to prepare themselves to make sure that they are becoming agent ready, right? And then I'll talk about how can you also build agents that can take real actions without having to worry about um, what should be the interfaces for these third-party applications look like. How should you think about integrating with these third-party applications? And when you actually take actions, do you take actions on behalf of a human? If yes, how does authentication on behalf of a human work like? So I will unpack all these questions. Let's first talk about what is actually driving this change, right? The power of the ability of the agent to be able to talk to any application out there in the world without having to actually use a browser or a device of the end user. So that is really made possible by this model context protocol or the MCP. So MCP is a standard that was first proposed by Anthropic late last year, because they have seen a lot of people building agents and they realized that, hey, building agents and connecting them to third-party applications, it's really, really complex. And there are so many patterns that is evolving. Every developer is building their own way of doing things. It's not really easy, and there are a lot of ways it can go wrong. So what they came up and said is, hey, let's come up with a protocol that makes the whole thing easy for people who are building agents to connect to external data, external tools, external services in a simple and standardized manner, right? So what is MCP? MCP is a glorified way to say that, think of it as an API interface for the AI apps and agents to talk to any service in a seamless and standardized manner. So it's very similar to how an USB-C port exists on your devices. You can use the same USB-C port to connect to your phones, to charge the device, to your mouse, keyboard. Almost any hardware device can be plugged via USB-C to your device. Similarly, MCP acts as that universal bridge between your agent and any MCP compliant third-party application, right? So why is MCP so popular, and why? I think since it started late last year, now there are like thousands of MCP servers people are building left, right, and center. So why is it so popular? Because one of the biggest things MCP solved is, how can anyone build an agent that can connect with real world applications in a simple and standardized manner, so that they don't have to keep repeating what they're doing, or if they build something that can talk to Gmail, they shouldn't have to build a completely different way to talk to Google Calendar, or a Slack, or a Notion, or in the context of business applications, HubSpots and Salesforce, etc. So there should be a standardized way for the agents that they're building to be able to talk to all these third-party applications in a standardized manner. So MCP made that possible. So let's unpack what is MCP itself, right? Because this is one of the first things that you need to learn before you build MCP servers, or you want to use MCP servers in your agents, right? I know it's slightly little bit technical, but then let's try to unpack it as much as possible, right? Um, Again, every application that wants to prepare itself to connect to agents, they have to first make themselves ready for what we call as agentic access, right? Agents access these applications in any number of ways. MCP is one of the ways that they can control what they can access, what they can do, how they can do it, so that there is no malicious intent that is happening because of this agentic access. So this is what MCP servers enable these applications to control how someone can connect to them, right? Now, there are you would have used Claude, you would have used ChatGPT, you would have used Cursor, Windsor. So these are what are MCP hosts. Basically, these MCP hosts can be configured to work with multiple MCP servers, so that when these agentic IDEs, or when these agentic applications are resolving a query or working with you to help you solve something, they have access to how to talk to these different third-party applications, give additional context, give additional tooling, give additional way to actually resolve more than what they already know. So MCP hosts, in simple technical word, anything that can connect to an MCP server. You would have used a lot of these MCP hosts already. Um, and MCP client technically is a small program that is running within the MCP host that can create a one-to-one communication with MCP server. For all practical purposes, people kind of interchange MCP hosts and MCP clients. MCP host is a container of all the different MCP clients that are talking to different MCP servers. And each MCP server itself is a lightweight program, just like a REST API server. MCP server is programmed to deal with MCP spec requests. And then internally, it can talk to a database, it can talk to APIs, it can talk to other programs that it knows how to control. It can even talk to a local file system to access certain content that is there on your device. So, but at the end of the day, these MCP servers are programs that are managed to communicate with all these agentic IDs and MCP hosts in a particular manner, right? So one of the biggest questions that we grapple with is, hey, Gmail is not building an MCP server. Um, Google Calendar is not building an MCP server. Microsoft is not building an MCP server. Of course, there are some that are building an MCP server like GitHub, maybe Stripe, etc. So they are preparing their applications for agentic access. So next question that we ask ourselves is, what actually makes these existing applications agent-ready interfaces?
Yeah. Ravi, probably we can take a pause for a minute and just maybe take a couple of questions. I think one
Sure.
common question that I've been seeing since the session has started is if you can draw a parallel to API here, because API
Yeah.
is something that most people understand, and MCP might be easier to understand from that reference.
It's a great question, actually. So even before APIs, right? Even before APIs, if you take a stroll back the history lane, in 90s, people started building applications, and then they used to distribute these applications in CDs and floppies and whatnot to anyone who wants to use them. And if you and I are interested in buying and using those applications, you can only use the way the developer intended you to use. You can't make any modifications. You can't change anything. And it was very restrictive, especially in the context of a business setting, right? How does the developer know everything that I want in my company? How does the developer know what my workflows are? How does the developer know whether my application should talk to another application or things like that, right? So developers used to build these applications in siloed manner in whatever they thought was the best thing to do, right? Then they said, hey, this is not good enough. We need to be able to customize these applications so that we can make it kind of modify for every customer's use cases in a limited manner, right? So that's where this programmatically accessing and programmatically modifying these applications even came into picture. That's where you think about REST APIs, SOAP APIs. They're not just a way to connect two different applications, but they're also a way to modify an application's behavior. But if you think about it, even this modification can be done only by developers or who know how to use these APIs, who know how to program against these APIs in some particular programming language. So it made things easier, but it's not really so awesome that if I want to build an application on top of Google Calendar's APIs, I can't do it unless I know how to actually use uh, 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 um, unless I know how to actually write code in some programming language. I understand how Google Calendar's APIs work. I understand how to actually put all these things together, and then write a program, deploy a program, and then run the program to actually make that work, right? So now with agentic access, yeah, even forget about agentic. Even if you go through MCP, right? Now, MCP said, hey, do you want to access data from your Google Calendar? Just ask in a human natural language, right? And the MCP, the underlying model is able to figure out using the MCP protocol how to talk to the third party application with the help of an agent, and then get the data and also modify it in a way that you would understand as a human. It's not necessarily spitting out a JSON response. It is actually formatting the JSON response in a human language, right? So the way I think of this evolution um, of these application development and application access is, previously it used to be what the original builder or inventor thought the application should behave. Next, the REST API came, which made programmatic access possible. Now the MCP era came that made agentic access possible. So this is how I look at the evolution, right? It's more about how do you democratize building tools? How do you democratize accessing data in all the different third-party applications without necessarily having to learn how to code, without necessarily having to learn how to program? So that is the biggest shift, right? If desktop applications or web applications are a way for humans to access the product, and APIs are a way for machines to access these products better, MCP is a way for agents to access the product better. So that's how I would look at kind of comparison with these different access methodologies of these different applications.
Got it. Ravi, I have one question here. On the similar lines, I would really love to know what are some personal MCP use cases that you personally are using, just so that folks here would be able to do something similar on their own. They can connect their MCP, they can connect Google MCPs and calendar MCPs and play around with stuff. So, would love to know one or two examples that you are using in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll give you some use cases that I use it, right? For example, we built a simple agent internally that constantly tracks my 100 emails,
Hmm.
and it categorizes them based on, hey, this is an email from a customer, so this is important. And this is just a notification email for someone accepted your calendar invite, or this is just a promotional email for some product, etc. Right? So based on the category of the email itself that the agent determined with the help of LLM,
Got
if
it.
there is a important customer email, it would ping me on Slack saying that, hey, I have an important customer email. This is from this customer. You may want to respond to it. So
Right.
that again, internally, what it is using is it is using Gmail's MCP and it is using Slack MCP.
Correct.
But it's not just about using the MCP, but it's about how do you cleverly put these things together to solve a real problem. So again, different other MCPs that I'm using are Google Calendar,
Hmm.
because I'm too lazy to open Google Calendar and create an invite. So from my cloud desktop, I just say, hey, I need to talk to Satya tomorrow at 10 a.m. Just create a calendar invite for that. And then it will figure out how to do all that instead of me having to go to manually go to Google Calendar, open the tab, create an event button,
Got it.
and add Satya and things like that. So these are some personal use cases, but in business context, it can unlock a lot of power, especially for finance teams and IT teams and even employees, right? You can say create a leave for next week and then get it approved from my manager, right? Instead of you have to use those awful HRMS tools that some companies use from the legacy uh, applications. But yeah,
Got it. Got it. I think I'll just take one more on this lines.
yeah,
Um, uh, so let's say Google, I don't know if Google has their own MCPs, but if you're using a third party MCP here, um, how do you trust them? And how do you ensure that the third party MCP that you're using, because let's say probably I think Gmail has one, I'm not completely sure about this, but let's say you're using some Slack MCP, or you're using calendar MCP, you're using I don't know, tons of other Jira MCP and stuff like that. How do you ensure that the MCPs that you're using don't have a malicious intent, right? Uh, yeah, if you can touch upon this.
yeah. I mean, the short answer is you can't. Uh, unless um, unless the MCP server is from official sources, it's extremely hard to trust. Um, um, so that is where one of the things that you should be really careful about, not using any MCP server just because they're free or just because they're open source. Because open source, it sounds safe enough because
Correct.
um, you can inspect the code and then see that everything is fine. But because these open source code can be modified at any point of time, you're not necessarily in control of all the changes that are happening in future, rather than what you just inspected right now. So one of the things that you would want to be really sure of is either build MCP servers yourself
Ah,
or use only official MCP servers. or use a trusted partner that is doing these MCP gateway as a service. So I know there are companies like Smithery that are hosting and curating all these MCP servers. So it is extremely important that you trust the author of these MCP servers, that they don't have any malicious intent. Even they may not have a malicious intent, but make sure that they have enough guardrails and evals in place to make sure that they're safeguarding their MCP servers against prompt injection attacks and leaky access attacks and all that.
Got it. Makes sense. Thanks a lot, Ravi. I think we can go ahead if you don't have anything, Abhay.
Yeah, I was just going through
Yeah, sure, we can go ahead.
the Q&A just to make sure that we connected.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 So one of the things that I see as a question is, where do MCP come into picture? How does MCP talk to LLM? And how does the end-to-end flow really work? I think this is a great question. So MCP is actually, I think we should address that before we get to the next stage, so that it is easy to understand. We spoke about LLMs being text in, text out. LLMs can't access third-party applications, but we said MCP gives them access to outside world, right? That is not necessarily true, right? MCP is a way to bridge LLMs and third-party world. So think of MCP as a bunch of actions. MCP server is telling agent, hey, I am capable of these things. And when an agent using that MCP server tells LLM, hey, I am connected to an MCP server that says it can do 10 things. Those 10 things can be, I can send an email, I can read emails, I can send a Slack message, I can create a calendar event, for example. And it also tells LLM, if the user is asking me a question that says, read all the unread emails and then categorize them. And if any of the email is important, send me a Slack message. That is the user query. The LLM says, hey, I don't know how to access your email, but you are telling me that you are connected to an MCP server that has a capability that says read email. You first ask that MCP server to execute that capability and then tell me what that MCP server says, right? Now this agent says, okay, LLM, you asked me to do execute this capability. So, which is what is in the MCP world called as tool call. So it executes that capability and fetches the result, whatever MCP server tells it, right? Maybe it will give it 10, 100 emails. It goes back to the LLM saying, hey, LLM, you asked me to do this. I did this. These are the 10, 100 emails. It does what a great LLM would do, because now it's in its world, right? It's text in, text out. It categorizes. Hey, I read the text. This is important. This is not important. This is marketing, etc. And then it goes back to the agent again and then says, hey, you said you also have the capability to send a Slack message. Now, this is an important email. You asked me to send a Slack message for an important email. Execute this capability called send a Slack message, that you have an important email that you may want to respond to the customer with. Now, agent says, okay, LLM, you asked me to do certain thing. Let me execute that, that capability or a tool call. And it goes back to LLM saying that, hey, I've done what you asked me to do. Now, what do you want me to do next? Right? Now, the LLM says, that's it. The user asked to read emails, categorize them, and send a Slack message for important emails. We have done all the things. Now, we have solved the user's problem. So, this is how an agent orchestrates the communication between MCP servers and LLMs. Here, LLMs are deciding which tool to be executed or which capability to be executed in the context of the user query. LLM itself is not making the third-party API access or third-party MCP call. It is orchestrating, or it is helping the agent to orchestrate when to use LLM's text in, text out capability, and when to use agent's capability to talk to third-party application via MCP servers. I think this is the fundamental workflow of how agents can use MCP servers to give additional capabilities and take autonomous workflows happen with the help of the underlying models, right? Uh, so if you have seen Matrix movie, think of MCP servers as those special programs that can be added with just wiring up a brain, and model just learns all those the agent gets all those capabilities without having to learn how that actually works, right? So the agent itself may not know when to use what capability to get the work done. That's where the agent uses LLM to tell it, hey, this is when you should use this particular capability. This is when you should read emails, or this is when you should send emails, or this is when you should, create a calendar event to talk to your customer, etc. So this is what is actually giving the capability for the agents to non-deterministically leverage LLM's capability to figure out the action, so that you don't have to program what is an important email or what is a promotional email. LLMs do the job for you. Um, and this is also one of the reasons why, as an agent, you should not give it a lot of capability, right? So what happens is, if you give an agent a capability to do 100 different things, when it asks LLM is confused now. Dude, you're telling me you have 100 capabilities. I'm extremely confused when to use what. So again, this is the next level of agent optimization to figure out how many capabilities to give context to the model, so that LLMs can determine what is the right capability to be used in the context of executing a certain activity, etc., etc. Right? Um, so that is a fundamental orchestration between an agent, that is a program that you wrote, and an LLM, which is an underlying model that you're using. It can be OpenAI, any of the Anthropic's Claude models, or Gemini Flash, doesn't matter. MCP is the universal standardized way of giving what capabilities does this agent have to the model, so the model can help execute those tool calls with the help of the agent, right? So previously, there is no other way for model to say, hey, do this, because it doesn't even know what the agent can do, right? Now, MCP kind of made it possible. I hope that answered the fundamental question of, um, um, what does the end-to-end flow look like? Because that was one of the questions that was asked in the chat. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's go back to okay, okay, at least now, hopefully you understood what is an MCP and why you should use MCP in your agentic applications and the agents that you're building. But then what about the other side? Like, we just spoke about Gmail or Google is not building an MCP server for Gmail. So how does that work? Or if you are part of a company that is building a HRMS or a CRM for the modern world, how do you make your product agent ready? Right? So that is the fundamental thing that you need to think about beyond just building a web application or building APIs. You should fundamentally be thinking about, hey, how do I make my product agent ready? Because whether you like it or not, in the next couple of years, you will see agents accessing the product that you're building more than humans that you're building it for. Either these agents are acting autonomously, or these agents are acting by the instructions of the humans. But Don't expect your customers to log into your website, access your desktop application, access your web application, or access your mobile application to consume the data that you are showing them. They will use some sort of an agentic model to access your product. So how do you prepare yourself to make sure that your application is agent ready? Again, from the product management principles point of view, nothing changes, right? You still need to think of, hey, what are the actions or what are the jobs to be done in my product? It doesn't matter whether it's a human or an agent. Like just fundamentally think about it from that point of view. Let's say if it's a HRMS, you think about, how do I onboard an employee? Don't think of how do I create a new employee record in the database, right? You need to think from atomic actions, not atomic database operations or API operations, right? You would want to pick an action like onboard an employee, right? And then you would convert that action into a capability or a tool so that any agent that wants to take this action with you can actually use the MCP way of invoking that behavior without even having to connect to your system. The next thing is you build this action in compliance with MCP spec. There are a lot of frameworks out there, like a fast MCP, to help you create these MCP tools and actions with just 2-3 lines of code. I would encourage you to learn how to build an MCP server yourself, even it is for just experimental purposes, so that you know when you are working with developers, you know what they would go through. And when you tell them, hey, why is this MCP server not working? You know exactly the pain that they're going through. So build any simple MCP server. It can even be as simple as um, saying hello to anyone who says hello to your server. Build and deploy this MCP server. And the most important thing when it comes to product, taking this to production and then making it available to all your customers, is you need to add authentication so that you know which agent is accessing your MCP server or on whose behalf this agent is accessing your MCP server. You make sure that you're adding guardrails against prompt injection, so that if there are malicious intent, you're making sure that that is curtailed. You're making sure that anything that is applicable for good practices of API building, they're also applicable for MCP, because APIs, like I said earlier, is programmatic access. MCP is agentic access. This is just much more worse when it comes to predictability. At least when it comes to APIs, you can tell developers, hey, don't hit my APIs more than X times a minute. But agents, you can't even predict how they are going to access your product, right? So you need to be prepared for a lot of observability, a lot of monitoring. You need to prepare yourself for haphazard access to your MCP servers. Ensure that you are using modern standards like OAuth for authorization, or RBAC for which user can access what tools or what actions, and just focus it from, if I want to enable my customers to take agentic access of my product, what are the 10 things or what are the 20 things that I want them to be able to do? And then go from there, convert them into appropriate tools in your MCP server, and try it with a few beta customers before you roll it out to all your hundreds of customers. Because like I said, it's extremely important for you to clarify what these tools can do, because the agents will actually, funnily enough, the capabilities that you're saying your MCP server has, agents actually use this information to tell LLMs, hey, looks like because of this MCP server, I have these 10 capabilities. You tell me which capability to use. So unless you give really good instructions in your MCP server metadata, LLMs don't know which tool to be used or which capability used for answering what query. So you have to do a lot of testing internally to figure out, are you setting the right descriptions? Do you have the right guardrails in place? Do you have the right authentication in place? And that is how you enable your existing application to agentic access, right? Now, on the other side of the coin, how do you build agents that can actually take these actions that you have exposed earlier or someone else may have exposed earlier, right? Let's take a simple example in the context of a real world application, right? Let's say you're building a sales agent that is helping some 50 sales reps. Usually a sales rep's word is extremely hard, right? Because they need to go through all the leads that they're in touch with. They need to figure out whom do they need to contact right now so that the lead stays warm. They need to think about conversions, all of that, right? But when an agent is actually helping a sales rep, now the agent needs to act on behalf of that particular sales rep. If an agent has access to a CRM that the sales rep um, is using, then this agent should also have similar access to the CRM so that this agent can look at all the lead informations and make sure that this agent can read through all the context of the leads in the CRM, decide which lead to engage right now, and send a follow-up email. If you want to build that agent, the challenge really is multiple things. One, you need to figure out how to build agentic access to the CRM that the sales rep is doing. You need to make sure that you are constantly acting in the context of the sales rep that agent is running right now, and not necessarily acting by itself. Because the agent, if it is acting in the context of a sales rep who belongs only to the India region, that agent should only have access to the India leads, and that agent should only have access to the leads that are assigned to the sales rep. That agent should not have access to all the leads in that company. So how do you make sure that this agent can um, have the corresponding scope tied down to the human that it is assisting? How do you make sure that this agent can actually talk to all the third-party applications or the CRMs or the marketing automations or the email tools that the sales rep is using? And then how do you decide how to communicate to the lead based on conversations that are previously happening, all of that, right? Now, to solve all these challenges, what we are doing is we are launching a new product called Agent Connect. Basically, what we are doing is we are ensuring that everyone can build agents that can talk to any third-party application out there on behalf of a user that can grant access. Right. So I'll quickly talk about 4 different problems. One is, hey, how does the agent get access to third-party applications on behalf of the user and use the tokens or authentication? And once, if the third-party application uses something like an OAuth-based protocol, which is what is the standard protocol for MCP servers. So in case you are building an MCP server, you should support only OAuth-based authorization to grant access to agents that want to access on behalf of the users. And how do you give the right tooling information, right capability information to the models so that models can pick the right capability and right tool based on the user's query, and actually taking that action um, in the third-party application on behalf of that user, right? So let me quickly show you a demo of how you could build an agent that puts all these things together. I spoke about MCP, I spoke about authentication, I spoke about actually having the autonomy of deciding what needs to be done when, and we'll take questions from there. Just give me a second. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah. So again, we will go through the details if needed, but fundamentally, I am building a simple LangChain agent. LangChain is the agentic framework which helps me create agents that can talk to MCP servers and also underlying models to make the agentic behavior possible. Land graph actually can orchestrate multiple agents to make sure that agent one can talk to agent two and agent two can talk to agent three, and then coordinate the output and get one agentic application ready. So in this example, again, this is something that I've put together just now. I'll quickly show you how I'm using Scalekit product to build a simple agent that that can talk to Gmail and calendar and do certain funny things, right? So first of all, we are using Scalekit's Python SDK, and here what I'm saying is, hey, authenticate this user via Scalekit SDK to connect to their Gmail and connect to their calendar. And using Scalekit Connect's product, we are creating a dynamic MCP server. So these are the tool capabilities that I was talking about. Hey, fetch emails, send emails, list calendar events, create Google Calendar events, etc. Right. So now what this is doing is these MCP. So these are the capabilities that we are giving to the React agent that is built on top of LangChain. And we are saying, hey, these are the capabilities that I have. So based on the user query, the underlying model, in this case, we're using OpenAI model, underlying model determines, hey, based on all the capabilities that are there, I have fetch emails capability, send emails capability, fetch events capability, create calendar event capability. The LLM will decide which event or which capability to be used to solve this particular user problem. In this particular context, I'm saying create a calendar event for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Let's say to prepare for Q&A of Bitcoin session, right? Unfortunately, models don't know what is the current date and time is because their current context is whenever they're trained in the past, right? So we're also helping them by saying, hey, today's date is 28th August, right? So ideally, when you execute this agent, all we haven't told it to say connect to Google Calendar, or we haven't even given it APIs of Google Calendar. What we have done is we said, hey, I have these capabilities called I can fetch emails, I can send emails, I can list events, and I can create events. And you figure out based on all the capabilities that you have with the help of model, how to help answer this customer's question effectively, right? So let me quickly run this program. The reason why I'm hesitant to call this agent is it is still acting on the instructions of what I'm saying. It is not acting autonomously. This is still a Q&A agent, but it's just that the Q&A has power to actually do a lot more things beyond just answering a question using the text and text out, right? So yeah, it's picked me something. So I'll show you my Google Calendar so that you can actually see it has created a calendar event or not. I'm going to find out with you together whether the agent did its job effectively or not. Yeah, it did something. Yeah, it. So this is one of the things that I was talking about. If you remember in the prompt, I shared it to create a calendar for 10 a.m. But if you see in my calendar, it looks at 3 a.m. So again, this is the biggest problem, right? When I said time 10 a.m., I didn't give it any time zone. I just said 10 a.m. So it assumed that it should be 10 a.m. GMT. And because I'm in PST right now, it created the calendar event for 3 a.m. PST, which is 10 a.m. GMT, right? So these are some of the things that you need to think of while building agents to understand how your customers could be asking questions, and you should be prepared to handle all sorts of possible scenarios um, to handle edge cases, because your customers won't, this is not a click through application, right? Your customers are going to ask some random things. They're going to use different words, different phrases. You need to train your models in a way that they can operate for all these different scenarios. So yeah, that's a quick um, um explanation of how do you build an agent and give it additional access to third-party applications, and actually make it work with calendar. So I think we are at a time where um, everyone who knows how to speak effectively can build agents, can wipe code, can build applications. But fundamentally, how you think about what you're building drastically changes. Now you're thinking about how do I build for agents instead of how do I build for humans. The opportunity in front of us is really humongous, because you don't necessarily need to learn a programming language to figure out how to code or how to create products or how to build applications, but you need to know exactly what your customer problems are and how do you solve it effectively. And then you can take help of the vibe coding platforms and agentic IDs to get that done for you, right? And the most important thing is, like I spoke earlier, um, from rigid applications to programmatic access to applications, you need to constantly think of agentic access to anything that you're building right now. So if you're building any serious business application, you have to assume that your primary audience is going to be agents and not humans, because that is the future. Just make sure that you're building for the future, not for the past. And how do you enable the agentic access to the products that you're building? MCP is one of the ways. A2A could be one of the ways. There could be any number of protocols that may come up out there. But think of how do you create an MCP layer for your products so that you're enabling easy agentic access to your products. Granted, there could be 4 more protocols that may come up in the future, but MCP is the one that is extremely widely adopted right now. So you would start with that when you're thinking of agentic access. How do you build an MCP server for the application that you're building so that you can make your product accessible to as many agents or as many agent builders out there, right? Last but most important, especially if you want to go from a hackathon to a real world project, think of authentication, think of guardrails, think of real world scenarios. So one of the real world scenarios I took just now, I just mentioned that create a calendar event at 10 a.m. I did not mention whether I'm staying in PST or IST or a GMT. So how do you handle these different user queries in the most optimal manner as possible? Again, with agentic applications, when you think of scale, you need to think of reliability, and you need to think of security, and you need to think of predictability as much as possible. When an agent is trying to access your product, you would want to make your product behave in the same or similar manner at least 95% of the time, right? Again, like I said, the LLMs are predicting machines. They're not deterministic machines. So you want to optimize your thinking around how do I make my product for someone who predicts what should be the next move, right? And you need to build your product imagining that layer, right? It's very similar to how you would build a product for humans, but not for programs. That's the fundamental difference between building agentic access to your products versus building programmatic access to your products. Yeah. With that, I just want to thank everyone. Feel free to check out Scalekit. We make two things possible. One, how do you build or enable agentic access to your products? And we also help you build agents that get access to all the third-party applications out there in the world. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope this was useful. More than happy to take any questions at this point.
Thanks, thanks, Ravi. Really insightful session. I think this is the bit that we haven't covered yet in the buildathon. So many of the people were, I mean, kind of wondering, and maybe at some bit of time, probably a little clueless as well. But I think that is needed. I hope you have time for a few questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take a couple of questions in the start, right? And this is more from the again from the builder's perspective, right?
Yeah.
How do you ensure? I mean, I'll put it on the stage. I think Vineet has asked that. How do you ensure accuracy of the right tool calls, since it is
Yeah.
dependent on LLM, and it observed it is more like a hit and miss
Yeah.
during the
I
analytics.
think it's a great question, right? And the reason why it's great is this actually brings about a couple of fallibilities of uh, using LLMs. Because fundamentally, LLMs, based on the context that you're providing, are determining what should be the next step. So if you give enough context in the capabilities that you're building and exposing as part of MCP server, when to use that capability, when not to use that capability, then the probability of LLM picking the right tool increases. But if the capability, all you're saying is, hey, send emails, then it's really not giving a lot of context to the model. Then it makes up its own. So LLM is great at filling the gaps. If you don't give it enough context, it'll make up its own assumptions and you have to deal with that, right? So how do you optimize for LLM's tool selection is by giving as much context as possible in the tool metadata or the tool description that you're offering as part of your MCP servers. So you're actually reducing the imagination or creativity of the LLM to a certain degree where you're giving it as much opportunity to pick the right tool for the right task, right? Let's say in the Google Calendar, don't say things like there is a capability called create a calendar event. Don't put the description as create event, because if there is another MCP server that the agent needs to interact with that needs to create real webinar events, for example, then the LLM wouldn't know if I should use that capability or this capability. Right? Make it very, very clear on when to use this. You can even go as far as to say that use this capability when you want to create calendar events. Do not use this capability when you need to create physical events, or you can also set certain assumptions, right? If the user does not mention any time zone, consider IST, right? If most of your customers live in IST, right? You can set a lot of assumptions, and then you can break some of the myths that LLM makes up when it's looking at the tool description. So, and this is where, of course, so you come up with your own first description, right? But then how do you test whether this is a good one or a bad one, or how do you iterate and how do you improve? So this is where evals come into picture. So you basically write 100 prompts and you have an expected output, and then you give those prompts to an LLM, and then what is the actual output that is generated from the LLM, and then you compare, is the LLM picking the right tool that I'm expecting it to pick, right? And you keep iterating based on the results that you're getting from the LLMs, and then you keep improving the tool description so that you're giving as much opportunity for the models to pick the right tool to answer the right question.
Yeah.
Got
No,
it.
I think that does answer. And eval is something that we covered just in the previous session.
Oh, nice.
One more question I wanted to pick again from the builders side of it is that for I mean, can we assume that for certain B2B apps which we know are mostly going to be accessed by agents, UX is probably not going to be that important going forward?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that personally I've been debating in my own head, right? Um, so one of the questions that I was thinking is, um, if agents are the one that need to access the product, then do we really need to, break our heads about how to build the right UI? Why don't we just give a Google kind of UX? Just put a search box in the middle and then say, hey, ask whatever you want, I'll do it for you. Right? You don't need to go to click on a left nav, click on the second tab, click on the third row, fourth button. All that is not needed. Just ask what you want and they'll deliver it. But one of the things that I'm also thinking is maybe we'll get there, but not right now. So today, you need to think more of AX along with UX. AX is agentic experience and not just user experience. When you think of user experience, you're actually thinking only of human user experience. You should also think about agentic experience, because these agents are not necessarily using the brilliantly built UI to get their work done. These agents are using completely different paradigms to access the product that you built. It could be MCP servers, it can be browser use, it can be computer use, it can be anything, right? Fundamentally, the way you would want to think about is, if agents are my first class citizens, how are they going to access my product? How do I make my product more accessible for them? And think from those first principles, right? Um, I won't say UX would be dead, but it'll just morph into a different fashion. You're not thinking about human users anymore. You're thinking about agentic users, and you're making your application interfaces slightly differently and sometimes drastically differently. But in the short term, you should definitely think about how do you coexist both human access and agentic access. And in the longer term, I think it's going to be more of agentic access than human access. Humans will just guide and orchestrate the agents to get things done on their behalf. They're not going to launch 20 tabs on their browser to access 20 different tools. That's definitely going to change very, very soon. So you would want to be prepared for such an eventuality as you're building a product.
No, I mean, that's really good way to think about it, right? And UX and AX both are important right now till we reach a certain point. Yeah.
Uh, I, I can
So
go
while
next.
we're preparing for the future, we still need to build for present,
Yeah.
right? I think we just need to marry the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I can go next here. Ravi, a lot of folks are asking how can they get started building building these mini MCP servers, doing small things, and get that first sign of delight, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw one question when you were presenting, Ravi, that how can I do the same thing for myself, right? There's one like step, like quick 2 3
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the journey that I went through. Okay. Hopefully, it'll help more of you. I'm a product manager, right? I'm not a software developer. Let me put that up. So the first thing that I've done is, um, I first used MCP servers in Cloud Desktop. Right, I added some random MCP servers. Of course, I didn't give it access to my actual Gmail account or actual calendar account. I created a Gmail account and then played around with it. Right. So now, at least I have some understanding, not technically, but understanding of, okay, if you use an MCP server, it will give additional capabilities for agents to get things done. Next thing that I've done is I kind of read through the actual specification protocols that the MCP guys have done to understand why are they doing this, what are they doing this, and how are they doing this, right? And then I bugged my engineer to, hey, can you help me explain what does this mean? Because I don't understand some of the things that these guys are talking about. This is where pair programming or co-learning helps a lot, because it helps two things. One, you may have certain biases about what you think the world would look like or world will act like. And these people that you're working with, ideally, they're complementing or sometimes contrasting your worldview. And then they help bust some of those myths in your head, and they'll help you learn from zero. So this developer that I work with closely for almost 30 minutes every day for 2 weeks, right? This developer was already building agents in a different organization. He's my friend from college. So I've asked him, hey, assume that I don't know anything and then start from there, right? He started explaining about compilers and programs and all that. So try and go as deep as possible rather than trying to take shortcuts, especially as a product builder. Um, because if you don't understand the underlying assumptions or underlying hypothesis of certain things that built, you won't be able to effectively leverage them in your use cases. You will always stay at top two layers of how to leverage the best of it unless you understand the actual depth. So first use it, try to understand it yourself, and then go to someone that you know who has more understanding and depth, instead of just looking at superficial understanding of what something is or not, right? The next step is I've asked him to write a program and then share it with me. I didn't write a program myself. I have asked him to write it. Hey, you write a program, simple program that you think I can understand. Write as many comments as possible. My next goal is to actually just copy the code and run it in my local desktop, right? And make small changes, so that if I change something, something is working. If I change something, something is not working, right? And then I actually asked him to ask me questions about my own assumptions of what the program is doing. I have asked him to go as deep as possible, right? The reason why I was doing that is I just don't want to see it work, but I want to understand why it is working or how it is working the way it is working. And then I started building my own programs from scratch. So if you actually want to learn, like build that simple agent, what I built, I would actually recommend you to take slightly longer route, which may take you around 1 week, 2 weeks, depending on how much access or how much time you have. But I really want you to spend the time rather than looking at that quick success to see, hey, can I build something that can connect to my Gmail, or can I build an MCP server? I think investing in that understanding of the underlying problems will help you appreciate the problem statement much, much more. And one thing that I've also learned is it will also understand the downsides of using something like MCP and what are the problems that you'll have to deal with when you're building MCP servers for your products and when you're using MCP servers, all that. Like one of the questions that I really liked was, hey, when I'm building an N10 workflow, LLM is not always picking the right tool. Yeah, that's because you need to understand that, hey, the tool definition and the tool metadata, tool prompts are extremely critical for an LLM to do the right job. So this is my 6-step model that I followed, and I would advise the same thing for every product manager out there. You don't necessarily have to know data structures and algorithms and 10 different agentic frameworks, but you should definitely understand why they exist or how they work.
Got it. Ravi, would you also recommend folks to use ChatGPT and Claude and talking with them and getting some code snippets? Or do you think that might not help them early on when they are in this journey?
That's completely fine. My only ask is, when the chat GPT or cursor or Claude code, whatever, gave you the piece of code, I would want you to spend some time to understand it,
Fair.
right? Otherwise, you're almost becoming a bot where the agent is telling you what to do, right? I don't want you to go to a point where you blindly trust what agent is saying and then lose your own lose your own control of what you're building and why you're building.
Got it. Fair point. Fair point.
So take help from these agentic IDs, but stay in control.
Fair. I think
Yeah.
that's a good takeaway. Also, while you were diving into the point of you not giving it the exact time zone, etc., I realized the importance of prompting and sharing context to get the right answer. And uh, if there are one or two tips that you can share with people here, because most of us are vibe coding, most of us are building these small tools, and we are facing into hallucinations or not getting the right set of replies. And I think a lot of it also boils down to prompting. So if you have a couple of tips for people to improve or get better responses, I think that would also be super helpful.
Yeah, I think Google has, of course, also Anthropic has released prompt engineering handbooks. Um, Again, fundamental things that help me in building prompts is um, try to be as clear as possible, right? You need to, while we think these models are extremely smart, they are, but you should also work with them like they're super dumb. Um, like when you are giving instructions or when you're asking for something, assume that they are the stupidest person in the room, and as if they know nothing, and as if they can't learn anything. And unfortunately, they can't unless they have short-term memory and long-term memory that you attach to it. Um, you would want to be as direct and as precise as possible. You need to tell the models what to do, what not to do. And one of the biggest unlocks for me is I use Claude a lot. In my Claude desktop, I have an instruction at the end of my everything that says, ask me questions, don't make any assumptions.
God.
That is my default thing. So even if I ask simple things, um, like when is the next solar eclipse, for example, right? It'll ask me things like, which country are you in? Do you want a full solar eclipse or partial solar eclipse? So it will not make any assumptions. Sometimes it is frustrating, but 90% of the times it actually helped me a lot of time after it does a lot of work and then say, hey, this is not what I was expecting you to do. Now make these changes to your assumptions. It just saves a lot of frustration. So that was my biggest hack. Saying don't make any assumptions, ask any clarifying questions before you do whatever you're doing, right? And that one single line to most of my prompts um, helped me understand how these models are actually thinking when you're asking them to do certain things, right? Sometimes it asked me questions I would never have thought about. So it actually made the response super great. Like for example, the other day I was asking it to create a PRD for product features that we are launching. It asked me questions like, who is your persona? Do they do more of that or do they do more of this? If you would imagine your person, like one of our persona is developers, right? Is he a junior developer? Is he a senior developer? Is he an architect? Is he a CTO? So it asked me so many clarifying questions that it forced me to think about, hey, do I really know my persona or not? Right. And I never really attributed so many characteristics of the persona that I need to think about before designing a job for them. Right. So if you are using or interacting with LLMs, I would definitely encourage you to just put this one line in your prompt. It is not only helpful for the models to give you better answers, but it'll also unlock your own thought process into how your agents are thinking and how you should think better um, uh, while working with models and even otherwise.
That is better than most of us basically who does. Once you get an answer, you try do better, do better. Can you do this differently? Can I have a better answer from you? All
Yeah.
of
So
these.
The problem with that is, like I said, right? They are they're extremely stupid, right? When you say do better, they just want to please you as best as they can. So yeah,
Yeah.
they'll do better. But what is the definition of better is something that you haven't articulated. They have never asked you.
And every answer is just trying to please you, right? If you say yes, then they say yes. If you say no, say no. But yeah, coming to that, this is probably more from an early product building perspective question that I saw in the chat, that for the data heavy applications where an agent needs to process a lot of data, how do we ensure that LLM context does not get overburdened? Because context is something that is very important, and it is also issue with many of the LLM tools out there, or even the agents which gets built on top of that.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, right? Where um, the context window of the models is the biggest problem. Um, Again, you would want to give it as much context, but not too much context that they're just they're confused with all that context, right? I'll give you a simple example. I built an agent that can access my emails and categorize them. I spoke about that. I realized that when there's a long email that I would get, which has images, which has some HTML content, then it is overloading the context window of the model that I'm working with, because obviously, right? So then I realized that, hey, agent really don't need to look at HTML because they're not looking at it, they're reading through it. All they would need is the plain text content of the email to understand the intent of the email itself. So that's the first thing that I've done, which is I've stripped off HTML response being sent to the agents and said, hey, send only plain text body to the models, so that that's the only thing that they need to work. And the second thing that I've done is most of the emails are independent. They don't need to read all the emails together and then say email one is important, email two is marketing, email three is promotional, right? So what I've done is I've built a loop to say send one email to model and then categorize it and then do whatever it needs to be done. And then once it is done, send the next email, send the next email, send the next email, right? So, depending on understanding the true use case of the agent that you're building, you may want to make the context that you're sending to the model relevant and helpful. Avoid all the nonsense. The other thing that I've also learned recently is, hey, why are you? Let's say we are sending JSON as a context to the model, right? You don't need a pretty JSON. You can minify it. You can remove all the new line characters, spaces, etc. Right? So try and reduce the context window as much as possible when you're sending to the model. Again, don't think of them as humans. They are models and machines. They can interpret text effectively, right? That is one thing. Second thing is, can you chunk the context that you send to the model? Like the example that I've taken is in my agent context, I can send email by email by email. I don't need to send all the emails together. Let's say in the data heavy applications, can you send one customer's related data in one go? Or if you can't do it, one customer's last 24 hours data in one go? Or wherever there is some sort of opportunity for you to chunk into smaller sizes, see if you can send it to our LLM can work on it independently, and then create a summary of that, use it into a short-term memory, create another chunk, create a summary of that, put it in the memory, and then chain all these memories together if you want an aggregated response. Again, it depends on what the agent that you're building, but you can adopt different strategies to make sure that you're affecting, you're working with the models effectively by giving optimal context sizes.
Got it. Thanks, Ravi. I think in the respect of time, probably I'll just ask one closing question. And this is something that we generally ask to most of the speakers here. Is let's say you've already been into Scalekit journey for some time now, but let's say you are starting from zero today, right? What will be two questions here? What will be your tech stack will look like as a founder, and B, at what point you will introduce, let's say, AI into your journey? Because most of the situations right these days is that there is AI available at to solve all your problems. But as a builder, you need to decide where you want AI and where you completely probably not want AI. So yeah, these two questions.
Yeah. See, first question is very easy to answer, right? Tech stack doesn't matter. Um, um, I mean, I can honestly say this now. Uh, really doesn't matter. And you need to understand that the world is changing so rapidly, that whatever you think is relevant today is no longer relevant 3 months from now. For example, who MCP as a protocol was introduced last October. It is less than 12 months. And now everyone is thinking about building MCP servers using MCP servers, right? The whole thought process needs to evolve from human access to agentic access. And that agentic access itself is going through such a evolution and revolution that whatever tech stack that you think is relevant today may not be relevant 3 months from now. So I would say don't even worry about tech stack, right? And the second thing is a pretty interesting question. You said, when would you think about introducing AI? I think I have slightly changed my mindset over the last 6 months. Um, Again, it goes back to my fundamental hypothesis and philosophy that um, agentic access is going to explode if it has not already exploded in the next 1 to 2 years. Um, what that means is while you're building your product, you're not thinking about introducing AI to your product. The way you need to think about is, hey, if agents are using my product, how would my product behave? How would my product react? How would I expose my product to all my customers who themselves could be using simple N8N agent builder, or they're writing programmatic Python agents or LangChain agents or QA agents. Um, you need to fundamentally think about that from that point of view, right? And while I'm thinking about agentic access, I also need to think about how do my product offer more value to my customers. So at the end of the day, you're building a product because not because you have nothing else to do, right? But because you thought, hey, there is a problem in the world and I'm the best person to solve the problem. That's why you're building the product, right? So if you go back to that particular problem statement, previously you were constrained by compute, you're constrained by developer understanding, you're constrained by developer bandwidth. But now assume that you have one more weapon in your arsenal, which is AI agents or large language models, right? So if you have to think of solving that problem ground up, how would you solve about it today, right? How do you leverage LLM's predictability and data crunching ability to add more value to my users who are using my product, right? I wouldn't rather look at it as introduce an AI module to my product, but I would rather look at it as how can I add more value? How can I unlock additional insights to my customers? How can I make their life better? How can I make their problem solution slightly easier? Um, and then wherever AI makes sense, it makes sense. So again, I would look at it as I have developers, I have compute, I have machines, I also have models, right? I just look at it as another, um, um, uh, yeah, another weapon in my ammo um, to figure out when to use it to add value. But I would do it from day zero, um, right? Not as an additional touch point or additional feature that I would build.
Makes completely sense. I think with all the builders, we have heard different answers to it, but all of them make sense from the different perspective of where you are building it from, and what is your starting point looking like. But thanks, Ravi, for super insightful session. Also showing us how to actually do this, which most of the people had been looking as well. That where do you get to see something hands on, something on screen, and all of that. But thanks for your time. Saurabh, anything if you'd like to add?
No, I think awesome session. MCP has been something which we have been hearing a lot about. But finally, we had someone like you to explain to us in a very clear, smooth, and succinct manner. So loved it, Ravi. Loved the session. I'm sure folks also got a lot of takeaways. Thanks for explaining how to prompt better, giving us a mental model and framework. I think lots of things for us to also unwind, uncompress, and bring it to our learning game as well. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been great talking to you folks. Sometimes it helped me understand my own understanding of the MCP better because some of the questions are really really great questions. Um, and yeah, I would love you to guide. I would love to see what you guys are building and what products come out of this buildathon. And then I hope some of them will become actual real world applications that I can use. I'm looking forward to that, really.
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome, Ravi. I think we'll stay in the stage for a few more minutes. Yeah.
All right, I'll take a
Thank
look then. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Super, super, folks. I think all of you had been mentioning that you liked the session, very informative, a little bit hands on. But yeah, I think that's what we had been trying. That from now on, I think, it's been more than a week that you all had been attending the sessions. Many of you already decided on the ideas also to build. So all the sessions from now on will be hands on for you to know how top builders are actually building their own products. Any questions in case you have, specifically for the sessions or something for the Ravi to pick up? We'll see if he can pick up, but or anything specifically related to buildathon, feel free to share here in the chat. Me and Saurabh are here probably for next minute or two.
Yep.
Thanks for the insightful session. Very informative session. Thank you. Too insightful. Thank you. Thank you for the session. Cool. I think, folks, as usual, do share your learnings on socials. We will be announcing and sending merch, giving extra bit of credits, to certain people who will be sharing throughout the entire buildathon. Yeah,
Yeah.
and see you tomorrow. I think tomorrow we have another session coming up. So see you all tomorrow again here, same platform. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you around. We'll see you in the Slack channel. Please make sure you join that so we can hang out over there. If you have any feedback, write to us at team@theproductfolks.com, or you can directly ping Abhay, me, Suhas, or Adi, or anyone from the team, and we will definitely help you solve that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, folks.